Yo, good morning. Welcome to the Stochastic.com MLB strategy show. 9-game action today. And for those of you who do not know yet, 6:40 start Eastern time. 3 games at 6:40. Otherwise, it would have been a 7:07 start or something. So makes sense. Makes sense that they do it this way. Give us 9 games. I am currently Matt, by the way, Matt Belman with me, Dave Loughran. Happy to have you guys with us. Getting 85. I knew this was going to happen before I even ran the Sims, before I even looked at ownership. I glanced at pricing and matchups. 85% Paul Skeens right now. Do not understand why on DraftKings this guy is priced at $9,500 in Pittsburgh against one of the most K-heavy teams in baseball. Explain that one to me.
Can't explain it. The only thing I'll say about Paul Skeens is the other two like elite pitchers on this slate, Gray and Fried, are very good in their own right. So like at least it's not just like Skeens and no one else. But yeah, man, like he's the cheapest of the 3 with obviously the highest strikeout upside. It's just a misprice. It's not as bad as like Hunter Brown, who balled last start, but it's still pretty bad.
We said it, man. Hunter Brown for the best pitcher.
He was you were like, I quibbled with you about calling him the best pitcher, and you were like, no, just dollar for dollar. And I was like, you're right. He ended up being the actual best pitcher on the slate.
I know. a lot of guys sucked. Like a lot of the top options sucked. Like Peralta was no good, right? And
no,
Castillo, was it Castillo?
It was Peralta, Castillo, and one other really good pitcher.
Felt like
was that the Bradish slate? Like the Bradish?
Oh, yeah, but he was unowned. He was fine. I think he went like 6-2 earned and 4 or 5. Like he wasn't good, but he got the win. Oh no, maybe he didn't. Sale. Okay, yeah. Yeah, weird slate. Hunter Brown was by far the best option. Hot as shit today, too. Everywhere. 92 in Pittsburgh, 85 in Philly, winds blowing out 11 miles per hour to center field. 90 in Atlanta, winds blowing in. Listen to this, though. Wrigley Field, 90 degrees at first pitch, winds blowing out 14 miles per hour to left field. 14 miles per hour. It always seems to be when Javier Assad, who doesn't give up home runs, is on the mound, but that's insane. How about Coors Field, Matt? 92 degrees at first pitch, winds blowing out to right field at 13 miles per hour. The Dodgers have a 7-run implied total today. James Paxton, Cal Quantrill on the mound. And then, a standard 70 degrees in Anaheim, winds blowing out to left at 8. But, dude, it's hot across the country. And on top of that, there are 3 games with significant winds blowing out.
Yeah, with not the best pitching going. So certainly a slate that looks like bats are going to carry the weight. Core's spot looks elite. No Mookie Betts. We'll obviously talk about that. And Ohtani, 7K. I can't remember the last time we saw a 7K hitter.
Amazing. 7K. Yeah. That's like Troy Tulowitzki in his prime when he used to play at Coors. Look, I think he got up to 7K at one point. But wow. I mean, look, winds are blowing out 13 at Coors Field, and Ohtani to right. Sorry, blowing out to right. God. Muhammad said, I don't trust high-priced pitchers on weekends anymore. I'll tell you what. I mean, weekend or not, I was expecting some people to talk about the whole like Skeens being super popular today, because he is going to be extremely popular, and how a lot of high-priced stud pitchers have gotten rocked lately. It's true. If not rocked, they just have not been good. I simply don't know how I get away from Skeens here is kind of the issue. Now, you're right. You could definitely make some pivots to a Max Fried at 9,800, Sonny Gray against Miami, all of that. But just, again, the whole dollar for dollar, looking at Paul Skeens with his K rate, with this matchup. Yeah, it's going to be hot, but this is not at Great American Ballpark. This is in PNC Park, one of the least homer-friendly venues in baseball. I'm struggling to find spots where this park ends up not looking good, right? You look at, okay, both handed. It's bottom 5, according to StatCast, in home runs over the last 3 years. Bottom 5. So you're going to be hard. And by the way, it's dead last for righties. You're going to be hard pressed to find reasons not to like Skeens here. He has a 35% K rate in the majors, Matt. 4% walk rate, 35.5% K rate with a 14.5% swinging strike rate.
He's been phenomenal. He's too cheap in a great spot. So there are a couple other pitchers that are like in his category today, obviously more proven, but he looks like the best of the bunch. I want to push back on the, I know he was saying it in jest, not playing any expensive pitchers over the weekend. You just can't really think like that because it doesn't make a difference. First off, if you have cheap bats go off like Detroit did on Saturday, then expensive pitching is probably what you need, even if the expensive pitchers aren't as good as you want them to be. Secondly, I look at like yesterday. I know a bunch of pitchers weren't good, but the afternoon slate, you had Glasnow and Logan Gilbert in good spots at home. They both threw up like 38 DraftKings points. So I don't really think it's a can't play them at this day or whatever. It's just a case by case thing.
Yeah. Yep. I really thought that I would pull up DraftKings and Skeens would be 11K in this spot.
Yeah, he's just too cheap. And I like, this is where Mookie Betts being out actually, I think, makes Skeens even more like harder to get away from, because if Betts were in, he's another like $600 to $6,500 bat. Probably, I don't know what he is today because he's out, but very expensive. So if you want to stack the Dodgers in cores with all their best hitters, you might not be able to get up to even one of these expensive pitchers. You probably can, but with Betts out, like even stacking the Dodgers, you can certainly play Skeens and a cheaper pitcher and stack any team on the slate. So I'm with you. Very, very hard to get away from him. I mean, I love Fried. He's a great pitcher, but he's not an amazing DFS pitcher because of his strikeout, or lack of strikeout upside. I know he showed it this year at points, but it's just not the same as Skeens. Sonny Gray is 1,000 more than Skeens. So I also love the matchup for Gray. I think that's the question: Gray or Fried to pair with Skeens.
For me, it'd be Fried.
Yeah, price thing probably. Also, your boy Kikuchi.
Yeah, we can get into all of that for sure. But from a pricing perspective, don't get me wrong. I mean, Sonny Gray is excellent. There's no doubt about it. He's great. Good park, good matchup. Max Fried's pretty damn good too. And, last start he got tuned up. Baltimore beats everybody up, especially if you're a left-handed pitcher. I mean, I honestly just throw that out the window. They had 4 home runs off Zach Wheeler yesterday.
That's the other thing about Baltimore. It's not just that they're amazing. They hit good pitching. Like they really hit good pitching.
They're awesome.
I'm never using I don't want to say never. I'm not using expensive pitching or really any pitching against Baltimore. Hardly ever.
Yeah, I have very little interest in that myself, if we're being honest here. It's just Ranger was actually better than I expected. Ranger was great against them on Friday. He really was. He was good. Didn't get the win, but 6 2/3, 1 run, 6 Ks. He was good.
They blew that game late, didn't they?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so he was probably in line to get the dub.
No, I think it was tied. Oh no, you're right.
Okay.
I think
I don't know.
They ended up right. It went back and forth. They ended up winning that game, but in extras. It had like that extended delay at the top of the 11th.
Yeah, and you saw the last play with Mullins called. First, they called him safe. I don't know if you saw that, and they overturned it, I think.
Wait, you mean? No, they called him out. Then they called him safe.
Oh, they did. So that extended the game even more. I thought so. Okay. I just couldn't remember.
Bottom 9th or bottom 10th or whatever it was.
Okay.
Yeah. What you're talking about? The one that it bounced off Stubbs grabbed it and dove to get him from behind the plate. They called him out, but he was clearly safe. Yeah, I
was misremembering. I thought that they called him safe, and to end the game, they called him out, but that was just before the delay.
Yep, exactly. But no, look, pitching's not bad here. It's not great. There's certain spots that I'm uninterested in. Like Assad in this spot, he doesn't have the upside. He really doesn't. I mean, he hasn't. It's not even that Javier Assad's been bad. He doesn't give up a ton of power. Although he has given. It's funny. The last time we spoke about this, I was like, man, this guy's allowed 2 home runs on the year, because I remember it was a win game in Wrigley against the Braves. He gave up 2 home runs, and now he's allowed 6 home runs over his last 4 starts. So maybe a little regression in that respect, but I tell you, there's some spots that just don't appeal to me. But Gray, Fried, and Skeens up top against Miami, Detroit, and Cincinnati, they're all favorable spots. Like, they're all good spots. It's just the way I look at this, Skeens is by far, and you guys play this however you want, but to me, Skeens is still by far the best pitching option on the slate. I just don't see 2 ways around it.
I'm with you. Our top pitcher tool says that as well. For me, though, and I'm not sure if you feel this way, I think you're right. Skeens is by far the best option. But I also think the difference between, I also think Fried and Gray are like by far the next 2 best options. And there really isn't much to love after them. Kikuchi and Pivetta, okay, you can make a case for them, but it's really a top heavy slate, at least in my eyes.
Yeah, it is. Very much so. Braves are minus 218 on the money line. Pittsburgh minus 192. St. Louis on the road minus 162. So yeah, all of them sizable favorites. Clearly Atlanta the biggest. Personally, if I were to rank them, it would be Skeens miles ahead, and then just based on salary, Fried, then Sonny Gray. That's how I'd have it 1, 2, 3. If you wanted to argue that it's Gray ahead of Fried, I'm not going to fight you on that, but it's still Skeens number 1, and in my opinion, by quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I think just to lay it out easy for the people watching, and I think we feel the exact same way. Skeens is the clear number 1. And then it's really hard to decipher between Gray and Fried for the number 2 spot, but those 2 guys are the clear number 2 and 3.
By the way, Jason, congrats, dude. Said that, where was that? Oh, there it is. Goodman plus Cave got me a free month of Sims package. Haha, good stuff, brother. I assume you were rocking the stochastic avatar. One of the, maybe the old one, maybe one of the new beautiful 6 options that we have at stochastic.com/HOF. Yeah. I mean, why would you not? Finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more. Doesn't even matter if it's the quarter entry. It could be, you could enter for a nickel. Finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more. Hell, you're getting a free month of stochastic Sims. Single sport, MLB, free month. So that's Sims. That's everything. Contest generator, Sims, late swap, post-contest simulator, ownership, top stacks, top pitchers tool. What else? Player projections, top hitters tool, premium Discord, lineup generator, everything. And I'll have you guys know that we have some new stuff in the works that will be out very shortly. I think you are going to love it, particularly for those of you, hand builders who also would like a little assistance on the tools side, but don't want to completely throw your process. I'm saying too much. But go to stochastic.com/HOF. Download one of those 6 avatars. Jordan, you can throw them up on the screen. And use them wherever did you play. FanDuel, DraftKings, anywhere. And if you finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, just tweet us your wins at stochastic.HOF. Say something nice as well. Why not? It helps. We love to read it when we do the Hall of Fame segment and have you inducted into the Hall of Fame. If you win twice within the year, you get another free month plus a week of another Sims package. If you win 3 times, you're getting a month of Sims All Access. That's every single sport. And any 20K plus win, you get the custom Stochastic Hall of Fame ring with the engraved display case. Some very fun stuff around here. Join the family. Go to stochastic.com/HOF. Grab one of those avatars. Use it whereas you play. But shout out to Jason. Congrats, man. I love seeing people win with the Hall of Fame. All right. So Rants, need to figure out how to cross out games on the Sims. So, I mean, the easiest way to do it, Rants, so just run the contest generator and then go into, and then filter by the team you're looking for, and then just cross out the team like that. Especially like if you're dealing with a weather situation or something, you can cross the team out like that. But run the contest generator first, and then you'll see what I'm talking about. All right. Aiden, you can always send that to us, man. Sometimes I'm willing to make exceptions. Can't guarantee it, but feel free to shoot it over to Stochastic Hall of Fame. Depending on how I feel, I may make an exception. All right, so we got past those top three guys, Matt, and now you're talking Kikuchi, Pavetta, Gray against the Mets. God, ownership really falls off a cliff, though, doesn't it? Like,
Yeah, because it's go ahead. Sorry.
No, go.
I was gonna say, yeah, it does because these guys are like not cheap either. Like the next level of pitchers are so close in price to Skeens that it's like, why even bother? That's how I see it, at least.
Kind of feel the same way. Where Einstein said Lavi, Braxton Garrett against St. Louis. Pitcher Park, thoughts? I'm never fully opposed to getting to a Braxton Garrett type. Against plus St. Louis is just not a wildly impressive team. Neither is Garrett. He has a 20% K rate. He doesn't walk guys. That's good. There are some of the underlying numbers. I mentioned this before a couple weeks ago. Some of the underlying numbers aren't bad. You know, he gets a lot of ground balls. He doesn't walk batters. 9.5% swinging strike rate is fine. Like the strikeout stuff isn't good, Matt, but there's a lot of things that don't look terrible either. Like he doesn't have a bad barrel rate. He's not getting hit super hard, doesn't give up a ton of power. Those type of things make him, in my opinion, usually when you're going up against an okay team, he's fine. But I don't think there's anything that stands out as like, man, he looks phenomenal today either.
No, I'm with you. I kind of feel the same about Christopher Sanchez as well. Again, not excited about it, but I guess you got to at least look at these other guys to get a little bit different from the field, because playing Skeens and one of the other two and, a bunch of Dodgers, it's going to be pretty popular on this slate. So I do think it's worth at least considering some of these others. Braxton Garrett might be the best of the bunch just because of his price tag. Great ballpark. St. Louis has underwhelmed for years at this point. Yeah, I think Garrett would be like my favorite of like the non-elite three. And then I'll also shout out, and I know we'll get to this range, David Peterson seems way too cheap.
Yeah, we can talk about that. Let me do one more thing on Garrett. St. Louis has the second lowest WRC plus against lefties this season. Only Miami has been worse. So they've been bad. Second lowest weighted on base average. They have a 115 ISO against southpaws. That ranks third lowest in the league. Only Toronto and Miami are below them. They don't walk against lefties either. 7% walk rate. The only downside is they don't strike out a ton. 19.8% K rate. That's, seventh lowest in baseball. But they have not been good against lefties. So maybe they don't K a lot. But there is potentially something to be said here about, all right, well, Braxton Garrett's there and he's not great, but hell, we saw that start. It was Einsteinium that brought him up that one day against Arizona. He was good. What did he throw a complete shutout?
That was like the best start of his career. We talked about him that day. We used him that day.
Yeah, we did. And then he has since been lit up in each of his last two starts. So, if that's the silver lining, fine. But Einstein, look, I see where you're going with this, brother. And sometimes, like, if we're just looking for cheap options, the question becomes, where do we go? Matt, you brought up David Peterson. Whew. I mean, he's dirt cheap, right? Texas has stunk against lefties too.
Yeah, I said this the last slate he was on. I can't remember the matchup he was in.
Miami.
Okay, so yeah, I played him against Miami, and my logic was I had played him against the Dodgers like a couple starts before that. So how could I not play him against Miami? And he wasn't good. And I don't expect him to be very good. And I don't really want to roster him here. But Texas struggles against left-handed pitching. And for a guy that's like totally stretched out, he's probably too cheap. But there isn't much like glowing I can say about him other than his price tag. The guy that I guess intrigues me a little bit more is Carson Spires. So again, this is his first major league start. He's been very, very good in the minors. You get the same ballpark that Skeens is in, and Pittsburgh is coming back from Coors where they were pretty underwhelming. So I think you could do worse than Peterson, but I do think I like the upside of Spires a little bit more.
What has happened to Peterson's strikeout stuff is the question. He, through 3 starts, he has an 8% K rate, 7% swinging strike rate.
Yeah.
You look back in previous
Yeah.
seasons and nowhere close. I mean, it was actually well above average.
Yeah, that's why he's like, he had been in play for me, like in his first few starts, because if nothing else, he's always been able to strike guys out. 26% strikeout percentage last season. As you mentioned, 8 so far this year. Like, that's crazy. I'm sure it will stabilize, but he's getting hit hard. Like, the more I look at Peterson, yeah, he's really cheap, but I think he's a 150 max type of play.
Spires is interesting because I mean, it's not a terrible spot. It's a good park. It's going to be hot there, but it's going to be hot almost everywhere.
Yeah, because I also feel, and I think you do too, Skeens is really hard to get away from, but both Gray and Fried are expensive enough where I don't think either of those guys are must plays.
No, not at all. I don't think so either. I mean, plus it's going to actually, I ran the Sims. Jordan, you ran it too. I ran mine at a 10% the first. You ran yours at 25. Let me see. I love doing this kind of thought experiment, Matt. So I have 85% Skeens right now. So then the next logical question is, how much Skeens do I have with either Pavetta or with, and I'm sorry, with Sonny Gray, or how much Skeens do I have with Max Fried? My guess is very, very, very limited amount.
Yeah, same, especially
not a lot.
I would agree because I'm sure you're getting a lot of Dodgers and it's hard to play all that combinations combined.
Let's see. So Skeens, add filter. And for those of you guys that have the Sims, if you ever want to do this, once you favorite your lineups and you're in the lineups tab, you can go to the right side where you have lineups and you'll see the filter option. You can go in there and you can do one filter, then add another filter, both with the column being lineups, contains, and then value would be the player. So I'm just entering Skeens and let's say Gray. All right. I have, more than you would initially think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Oh, you know what? That's the problem. There's a John Gray on this.
Yep.
Still 11 with Skeens and Sonny Gray. And then what did I say? Skeens and Fried. And then 11 was, so that's actually a decent amount. That's more than I thought on a Coors slate with so many high run totals. 15% of lineups are 2 pay up pitchers. If you're including the 3 guys at that 9.5 and up range.
Yeah. I guess I'm not totally surprised just because there aren't any, it's not like there are cheap pitchers that stand out or that are getting loved. So kind of goes back to what I said before, like outside of Garrett and then like the Peterson Spires grouping, everyone else is kind of pricey, not as expensive as the top guys, but still 8K-ish or above. So yeah, it makes sense to me.
My highest owned stack is also the Rockies.
I can totally see that as well.
27% exposure, 5-man exposure to the Rockies, 22% to the Dodgers, 10% to the Cubs, 8% to San Francisco. Wow. So I'm looking at this now. I mean, it's heavily concentrated between these 2 games, between these 2 big win games. That's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah, it is. But both those games look really, really good.
Also, for what it's worth, I should probably point this out, Matt, that as far as like, if you were to take 3 and 4-man stacks as well, Dodgers by far my highest owned stack, if you're including 3 and 4 mans. which makes a lot of sense, right? Like, so you're still getting a lot of that Dodgers exposure, just not all 5-man stacks, pretty much the way it looks right now.
Yeah, we've talked basically all year about how good the Dodgers' top of their lineup is, but the bottom of their lineup hasn't really been very good for DFS purposes at all. Now you lose Mookie Betts. I'm interested to see like where ownership actually lands on them tonight.
Oh my God. I still have 49% Ohtani
Yeah, I mean, he looks
at that
elite here.
price point,
He's so good.
but he's so expensive. I didn't expect to have that much at all. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, Einsteinium. By the way, dude, I'm looking at it now. My second highest exposed pitcher is Braxton Garrett.
Wow.
Yeah. It is Braxton Garrett. And then basically all in the 10% range. Pavetta, Gray, John Gray, sorry. Sonny Gray, Max Fried, both at 10%. 8% Carlos Rodriguez, 6% Reese Olson, 5% David Peterson, 85% Paul Skeens. I do have a good amount of Kikuchi as well, Matt. You mentioned him earlier in the show. I have a decent amount of Kikuchi.
Yeah, we've seen him priced much higher than this at different points this season. And he gets a really good matchup here. Boston is not good or hasn't been great against left-handed pitching. Now, I will say they are healthier now than they had been, so I'm not as excited about the matchup as I might have been a couple weeks ago, but still, he looks like a very solid option if you need a little savings from, the Gray and Fried combo. I do think just based on the price difference, I kind of like the Garrett call. Like, Kikuchi's expensive enough where I'd rather just get up to the top guys. Playing 150, obviously, I'd get to some Kikuchi, but in minimal lineups, I think Garrett makes sense here at his price point.
He does. Einstein said, Lavi, how do you feel about the Phillies? Well, I'm always waiting for the second shoe to drop, if that's your question, but it's not. Yeah, I have very little confidence in Randy Vasquez. There's not much about him that excites me at all. I know, last start against Oakland, whatever, it was good. He's not an elite strikeout pitcher. I'm pretty sure Vasquez gives up immense home run power or power to lefties. Right? I'm pretty sure Vasquez gives up a lot to lefties, unless I'm misremembering here, but I don't believe I am. Let me see.
He's not very good.
Hold on. I'm going to pull this up right now. So, yeah, most of anyone on the slate, 3.18 home runs per 9 to lefties this year, 7.56 FIP, 30.8% home run to fly ball rate versus lefties. So, yeah, I mean, there's something here for sure. No doubt about it. And while he's not a lefty, Turner's expected back today as well. Trey Turner activated, should be back today. So where you've got Schwarber, Turner, no Realmuto, of course, but like your top 5 in this lineup are Schwarber, Turner, Harper, Bohm, Bryson, Scott. Brandon Marsh, another lefty, came back over the weekend as well. So, yeah, there's something to that. Like, there's a lot of lefties in this lineup, some good ones too with power. And you've got winds blowing out 11 miles per hour in Citizens Bank Park, 85 degrees at first pitch. No issues there. What's the ownership look? Are they heavily under-owned because of Coors and Wrigley?
They're under-owned for sure. 7.5% chance of being the top stack, 6.5% ownership. This is one where I like to do this exercise. If you took like the Coors game off this slate, and for this, I guess we can say the Cubs Giants game because of the wind, the Phillies would be the most popular team on the slate. They're not because they're expensive and there's other teams that are in slightly better spots on paper. But I think Philly looks like probably or the best stack to get to outside of those other 4 teams. Monster upside, ownership isn't high. They're expensive is this thing. So especially with Trey Turner back, like you're going to have to concede somewhere, but that's part of the reason why they're not getting love. So they definitely stand out as an intriguing tournament stack for sure.
They do. Some of the price points. if you're stacking them, you're probably getting this some David Dahl down at the bottom as well, because if he's in the lineup, because he's dirt cheap, good park, good weather. It's so expensive at the top with Turner, Schwarber, Bohm, Harper, and like even Stott's 4,800. They are an expensive stack, but that's going to lead you to some Braxton Garrett or some David Peterson. That's just what it's going to result in, Matt. You're just going to have to get there.
Yeah, to your Dahl point also, like, yeah, the 5 guys you mentioned are the 5 you want. But if you're hell-bent on getting to the Phillies and spending up on pitching, there's ways to do it. Like Dahl, if Marchand is in the lineup at catcher, he's like 2,200. So there are ways to do it. You're just going to have to get weird with it.
Are there any other pitching options? I know we're jumping around here, but are there any other pitchers that you're looking at? I tell you the truth. I look down here at some of these guys. It's just wildly uninteresting. Vasquez in this spot against Philly. I don't like that, especially with Turner back. I mean, and Marsh back. So you've got a platoon advantage there. Even without Real Muto, 2 of the 3 guys that were out just a handful of days ago are back. Quantrill's been good, but he's at home against the Dodgers. I know Sean V says the Dodgers are going to only score 2-3 runs. Fine, but I'll leave that to you to play Quantrill, brother. Reese Olson against Atlanta. Paxton, his strikeout stuff is completely evaporated. Even if he has a good start like he did last time out against Texas, there is no strikeout stuff. It is non-existent at this point. I don't want to pay that price point for Soriano against Milwaukee. That doesn't appeal to me. Maybe it is Spires. Like maybe you just go down to a Spires or hope that Peterson gets something back in the tank as far as strikeouts go.
Yeah, I don't really see much else. As far as Quantrill goes, this rarely happens for a pitcher that's like fully stretched out. His top 2 pitcher percentage is 0.0%.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Well, say what you want, but when a team has a 7-run implied total, you know, we have the Dodgers at 7.4 in the top stacks tool.
Yeah,
So
like this is one.
We have the Dodgers with a run total higher than many game totals that you could see this year.
Yeah, good call. And Quantrill, yeah, you could. He obviously has more than a 0.0% chance just because he's a human pitching on the slate. But even if you call it 1%, like, why? You know what I mean? There's just no reason.
Yeah.
If anything, you just don't play the Dodgers and hope that Quantrill can get through unscathed.
They have a higher total than the Cardinals Marlins game
That's nuts.
as a team. It's out of control. John Gray would be the other guy. Like, what do we do with John Gray today against the Mets?
This is one, like, I'm not really interested in the Mets against him, but he's just fine. Mets aren't a good matchup. They don't strike out a lot. He's kind of falls in that group of not cheap enough for me to want to get to. Like, yeah, he'd be in my pool if I were 150ing, but I do prefer Kikuchi a little bit more, and I don't like Kikuchi as much as the top guys. So I think Gray is just not a guy I really see myself playing tonight. How about you?
I assume I'll get a little bit of him. 24% K rate on the year. His strikeouts have certainly been down lately, but he's also you're facing the Dodgers, San Francisco, Philly, Cleveland. Before that, he was in Colorado, at Kansas City. He's actually had a pretty difficult stretch of starts this season. So I don't want to take that away from him. He's been pretty good. 7,900. I wish he was a little bit cheaper here. I have 10% of him. So same ballpark as Sonny Gray, Max Fried, Pavetta, all those guys. The only 2 pitchers outside of Skeens that I have more than 12% of right now are Kikuchi and Braxton Garrett.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially when one of your pitchers is basically just auto locked in Skeens. It doesn't leave you, too much room to get exposure to a bunch of different pitchers. Just going back to your Ohtani point also, like, after you said that, I want to see what we had him projected for as far as fantasy points go. I can't remember a hitter being projected for higher than him. He's projected for 15 fantasy points today.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Wow. Rich B, Dodgers are good, but they let down a lot. It does feel that way. It does feel that way. But it's the thing is, it's like with baseball, it's gonna feel like they let you down more often than they actually do. It's gonna feel like they let you down more often than other teams do. Probably just because you play them more because they're actually really good, and also because they're really expensive. But if you think about it, the Dodgers are still really the way it is. It's baseball. Most times they're not going to go out and win you a slate. Like, think about this for a second. You look at the top stack probability, they're at 25.5% on a 9-game slate, which is massive. That is a massive number. Nobody else is above 9%, but there's still 75% chance that they're not the top stack, right? So it just goes to show you how baseball plays. It's just so much different, Matt, than other sports.
Yeah, it's so much less projectable from a hitting perspective.
Mhm.
That said, and I don't always like wonder this side of it, but today I am. Like, you're so right. They have a 25% chance of being the top stack. So about a 75% chance of not being the top stack. Where do they lie though for when they're like the second, third stack, where you still want some of them, just another team is better? Like, what do you think the percentage is that they are a bottom 5 stack on the board today? Like, because for me, it's very low.
I don't know.
It's
I don't
fun to
know.
think about like that, right?
It is. It's got to, yeah, it's got to be low for sure. Especially considering like there's some other just bad teams on this slate, and there's some good pitchers. You know, like
Yeah, for sure.
what I mean, what is the chance that Cincinnati, Miami, Detroit, those teams are bottom 5 stacks today?
High.
Very high. So yeah. But here's the funny thing. It could happen and nobody would be surprised. If the Dodgers ended
Right.
up scoring 2 runs, you go, that sucks. But
For
what are you
sure.
going to do? JMF said, is that the highest top stack ever? I don't think I've ever seen that number so high before. It's hard to say, man, because it's all dependent on the slate size, right? So
Right.
like I don't know.
It's definitely
If
not the highest.
it's not. But what I'm saying is no, it's not, because you have some other crazy ones, but it's up there. To be 25% on a 9-game slate is pretty I mean, think about it this way. There's 17 other teams and one team has a 25% share as far as top stack probability goes. That's crazy.
Yeah, like you said, on smaller slates, obviously every team, like it's going to be higher. But the point is that it doesn't get much higher than this, whether it's the highest or whatever. It doesn't get much higher than this on a big slate. So, yeah, and bets being out just makes them easier to roster.
Mm-hmm. They make up 5% of the slate as a team, and they have a 25% top stack probability. So that's one way to look at it, right?
Yeah, that's wild when you think about it that way.
I
Oh,
really go ahead.
before we go to stats, I just wanted to say this real quick on the Garrett shout out. One thing I like even more about him that I didn't even notice, St. Louis is projected for ownership here. Third highest projected owned team on the slate. Like, no thank you there. Give me the Garrett side for sure.
Yeah, agreed. I agree. I I it's gross, but I like Colorado today too.
Paxton sucks. I don't know how he's even getting by. He doesn't strike out anyone anymore, like how you said. He walks a ton of guys. His actual numbers aren't great, and they're much worse than his underlying numbers. I think Colorado is a really, really good team to stack today.
You have to, right? You have to at least have them in heavy consideration. He has a 13.8% strikeout rate on the season. That's terrible. Also, it is not at all like he is getting. It would be different if you go, oh, well, he's got a 60% ground ball rate. All right, fine. Yeah, he doesn't. He has a 38% ground ball rate. It's the lowest it's been in years.
Yeah. I will say the counter to that is not about Paxton, it's about the Rockies, and they just aren't
suck.
good. Yeah, you look at who you're playing, if you stack them, you're not going to get excited about the names, but it doesn't matter. It's a play against Paxton in an awful park for pitching.
They also still have the second highest team total on the slate.
I think that tells you all you really need to know.
Like we have the Dodgers at 7-4, Rockies at 5-8, Phillies at 5-6. This is crazy. 5-6, Cubs at 5-5, Giants at 5-4. Ooh, a lot of big totals today. But I know Paxton hasn't allowed a lot of power. Only 1.06 home runs per nine. Only a 169x ISO versus righties. The guy doesn't give up power to lefties, just throwing it out there. But I don't know, man. Like, if you're not striking guys out and you're not just inducing weak ground ball contact and you're in Coors Field, which is
Right.
like the most cavernous park out there, bad things happen.
Yeah, and you're usually not even playing Coors like just for the home runs. Like Coors is
Right.
really good for hitting in general. You
Right.
get the wind blowing out today, which just boosts it. But I think the Rockies, and there aren't a ton of spots like this because, you know, pitchers are so strikeout heavy now. Paxton isn't. This is definitely a spot I could see the Rockies, you know, just getting a ton of doubles, singles, and scoring a bunch of runs that way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, good Hunter Goodman. Someone was saying in chat. He had 44 DraftKings points on Saturday. I didn't play Saturday. Who pitched for Pittsburgh that game?
I didn't play it Saturday night either. Someone out of the bullpen.
It was a bullpen game?
Wait, who pitched Saturday for Pittsburgh?
wasn't
Oh no,
Bailey
Jared
Falter?
Jones.
Oh, Jones.
Did you see that play? That because I saw the play.
I didn't see any.
Grandal
I didn't see anything from that game.
McMahon was on third, and Grandal like lobbed the ball back to Jones, and McMahon stole home on the throw.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Rockies scored 16 runs in that game.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's the thing about Coors Field. Rockies can be bad, and it doesn't really matter. You know?
Yeah, that's the thing about baseball in general. Like all these guys are major league hitters. So you get a bad pitcher on the hill, and usually they'll get exposed.
Yeah. And hey, how about this? Conversely, the Dodgers and Phillies and these teams can be really good, and it might not matter.
They can hit the ball insanely hard, just two guys.
Yep, great point. Exactly. Happens all the time. Just straight head hunting line drives to the shortstop. It's like great contact, squared it up. Doesn't mean shit. By the way, I forgot to ask earlier, if you guys don't mind, can you hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel? It goes a long way for us, and we love you for it very much. Got gain some momentum going into football season. Are you excited for the NFL season? Because it can't, for me, as much as I love talking baseball, I love it. I know like July is going to get here, mid-July, and I'm just going to be fiending for football.
I'm definitely hyped for football here. It's hard not to be in Cleveland because it's such a Browns town. Like I love baseball, but the majority of people, it's just Browns. So that's what you hear everywhere.
Absolutely. Yeah. Clayton, that's a great point, man. He said, I've always been a hand builder. Biggest thing the Sims has helped with is not the best plays or value. It's the roster construction. 100%, dude. Once you, it's been cool to see like Clayton, like the evolution of getting the Sims. Cause I had never used them till we released them either. Seeing some people like Clayton, myself, anybody, like understanding like, wait a second. It's not about the play as like, hey, this guy's good. It's not like you read a write-up and someone's like, play this guy. It's about the way the lineup is constructed. And in baseball, God, is that important. So important. Because you said it, Matt, it's not as projectable, particularly from a hitting standpoint. It's so much less projectable that the idea is not that you're the best at projecting these guys, but more so building the lineups and the roster construction. And just, that's why we sim them out tens of thousands of times. The leverage that you get on certain spots based on salary, ownership, all of our tools are factored into that as well. Like, why do you, if you think about it, the top stacks and top hitters tool and top pitcher tool that you use, they are essentially simulation tools.
That's all it is.
It's all it is.
Yeah.
The Sims just sims out what the contest is going to look like and makes a huge difference. Big time. You guys ever want to check it out too? Links in the description and chat. You can do a week or a month. You want to dip your toes in for a week, check it out, man. And it comes with everything on the site for baseball too, not just not just the Sims, but you'll love it. Clayton made a great point. Yeah. Great point. Even if you are hand building, like there's so many ways that you just run it and then make your own adjustments. But yeah,
Yeah, I
check it
think
out.
I don't think that can be overstated. Like lineup construction, the process of putting good lineups together is like the most important part. I remember Adam used to talk about that a lot.
All the
And
time.
I completely agree with him.
Yeah. And it takes you a long time to like wrap your head around something like
Right.
that. But with baseball, you have to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Dodgers obviously look great. I talked about Colorado. There's kind of no two ways around it for me. I just have to get to Colorado today. I don't really have a choice. Like, I know I'm going to get a lot of them. And why would I don't really understand why I'd fight that unless your argument, maybe one of you guys in chat has a good argument for James Paxton being good, but 13% strikeout rates and 38% ground ball rates with 7% swinging strike rates typically don't end up well at Coors. And maybe Matt, like it's like you said, they'll square them up, they'll barrel these balls, and they'll just get hit straight to the defense. But if that's the case, I can live with it because Paxton is a shell of his old self.
I agree with you. I think the Rockies look like one of, if not the best stack other than the Dodgers on the slate. And then when you consider ownership, they're right there. I also, and we've talked about this game a bit, but not really the specific side. I like the Giants a lot here.
I wanted to ask you, yeah, where are you at? Talk about the Giants, but this Wrigley game in general.
So I like both sides, to be quite honest. Assad, as you mentioned, had been really good at not allowing power for much of the beginning of the season. He slipped in that regard. Giants get a massive, massive ballpark upgrade here. And I've played them a bunch recently. They were really good to me yesterday on the afternoon slate. I had one of my best slates in a while. Some of their hitters that had been cold are finally starting to get going, namely Jorge Soler. They're leading off Brett Wisely, who's been kind of a revelation for them after losing Jung Ho Lee. So part of me is like, damn, I can't believe the Giants are getting 10% ownership here. But then the other part of me is like, if there weren't Coors on this slate, they'd be getting a lot more love. So it's one of those, almost like the devil type of thing where, sure, it's really hard to fade the Dodgers here, but if the Dodgers weren't on the slate, the Phillies, the Giants, the Rockies would all be getting a lot more love. So I like the Giants a lot here as a pivot off of Coors, and I feel the same about the Cubs. I think I'd rather pick on Assad than Hicks, but I don't think it's by a drastic amount. And the Cubs lineup is in the same spot that the Giants are in and not getting a ton of love because of Coors. So I like both sides of this game. My preferred side is San Francisco.
I get that. You know what's crazy? Among the top 5 pitchers in baseball, the top 5 highest ground ball pitchers, highest ground ball rates in the league. Among the top 5, 3 of them are on today's slate. Can you guess who they are?
Can you repeat the question?
Chat a chance too. All right. So ground ball rate, right? Among the top 5 highest ground ball rate pitchers in the league, 3 of the top 5 are on this slate. Can you guess who they are?
Yeah. So I know 2 of them for sure. Fried is number 1.
Uh-huh.
Assad.
No.
Oh.
Well, hold on. He might not be qualified. Let me see. Let's see. Because he does have a very high ground ball rate. Yeah, no, he is not one of them. Assad is not, he's up there, but not close to these guys.
I know the other one. I know Christopher Sanchez.
Yes. 59%.
Yeah, he's a guy we didn't talk about that's in play in that like next range of guys. San Diego's been St. Louis like in terms of their struggles against left-handed pitching.
Uh-huh. And how about this? Jordan Hicks.
Wow. Okay.
Yep. 54%. Here's the wildest thing though. Fly ball rate percentage. Christopher Sanchez is at 17%. That is the lowest in baseball by 4%. I mention that because I'm looking at this and I go, I know San Diego hasn't been great against lefties, but this is some damn good weather against the left-handed pitcher. I mean, hey, this could be pretty nice. This guy does not give up power. He's allowed 1 home run in 70 innings this season.
That's crazy.
Crazy.
Yeah, and I'm with you. Like, I don't know what to make of the Padres exactly. Their lineup is obviously good. They kind of remind me of Toronto, where on paper their lineup is really good, but in actuality, it underwhelms, especially against left-handed pitching where you'd think they'd be really good. You know, first off, they lost Juan Soto from last year and didn't really replace him with any hitter, and they've lost Xander Bogaerts. So the lineup is good, but it's not like Dodgers or Phillies good or anything like that. Machado has taken a step back. I could convince myself on some Sanchez as the highest leveraged pitcher on the slate. I mean, again, I don't love him here because bad weather. I do think San Diego is eventually going to be better than they've showed, but I don't think Sanchez is like a bad play at all. Considering this slate and how good some of the offenses look, I'd rather play Sanchez than the Padres offense pretty easily.
Interesting. Yeah, look, I get it. The only thing I don't love is he's not a great strikeout pitcher. He's just a massive when you say extreme ground ball pitcher, that is Christopher Sanchez. He is an extreme ground ball pitcher. He really is. Pretty remarkable. He's allowed 0 home runs at home at Citizens Bank Park. What?
Man. He's got really good win equity here. And again, I just think it's the type of slate where bats are really going to take the cake. And as long as your pitchers are fine, like that doesn't mean it's going to play out like that. But if you told me Sanchez like got the win here, I'd feel very comfortable about playing him. Oh man, it's funny that Peterson is on this slate because I can't remember a time, speaking of the win, last start, Peterson finished with negative fantasy points and got the win.
Really?
And he still finished. He had negative 4.75, I'm pretty sure. So after the win, he had negative 0.75. That's bizarre.
Wait, and he only gave up 4 runs. Oh, he had 1 strikeout.
Oh no, he finished with 3.3 fantasy points. So he was under before the win.
Wow. Handsome fella, though, gotta say.
Not a bad looker.
Hey, handsome fella. You give credit where credit's due. Well, no credit's due there. It just happened. But yeah, look, the whole Sanchez thing, eventually he's got to start giving up some power. I don't see how, like, eventually it's going to happen. You can't have a 0.13 home run per 9 rate all year. Like, you can't. Last year he had a 22% home run to fly ball rate. This year it's 2.7%. Last year he allowed 1.45 home runs per 9. I'm honestly like, there's a part of me that wants to go to San Diego, if we're being completely honest here.
I get it, because part of me, when you see pitchers like this, Sanchez is good, but he's clearly not great or anything like that. He's a good pitcher that seems to be pitching a little bit over his head. Kind of like we talked about with Houston like a couple months ago now. It almost seems like when their second shoe falls, like once Sanchez gives up a home run or two, the floodgates might open. Right. And San Diego's a team that can certainly do that.
Yeah, just throwing it out there. Like, I'm not getting much of them, but there's just good weather. It's good hitting weather. Good hitting weather for sure.
You know what that makes me not like, though? San Diego one-offs, because you're playing that just is a bad look for me, because you're playing for home runs and you're going up against the guy that doesn't give them. If anything, even if Sanchez doesn't,
you want him to implode.
Right, exactly. That's all it is.
That's a good point. Yeah, my guess is if I got no San Diego stacks, I would hope to have no San Diego bats.
Yeah, for sure.
You're right. What other stacks are you looking at here?
Not a ton, although that being said, like, there are offenses that would look good if Coors wasn't on the slate. Atlanta, who's gotten hot recently, Milwaukee, we talked about Philly. I just don't think any of those teams look nearly as good as like the top four.
I'm looking here. I mean, you're not stacking Detroit. Pavetta's such a boomer bust pitcher, but you don't love Toronto here. Austin, no. Miami, no. Like, would you look to get to like a relatively cheap Texas Rangers against Peterson if he continues to struggle getting swings and misses?
I don't think they're a bad play, but their ownership is there, kind of like St. Louis, because they're not expensive and they haven't been good against left-handed pitching. Like, not really a stack that I want to get to. Personally, seeing their ownership.
Yeah, like I know it sounds super chalky and all that, but right now it is for me. Colorado, Dodgers, Cubs, Giants, some Pittsburgh as well, and a little bit of Phillies. Like that's pretty
Yeah.
much where it is for me.
So I'm with you. Like, it sounds chalky, but when you list 5 teams, like, how chalky is that? You know what I mean? Because only the Dodgers are going to be the team you need to worry about ownership. And I think they look the best. But I also think San Fran, Colorado, Philly, and the Cubs look very good.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, Colorado actually isn't nearly as chalky as I thought they'd be. Because I think the price is getting up there a little bit. Look at the owner. What's the individual ownership on Colorado bats is the question. You always bring this up, and it's always a pretty salient point because sometimes, one or two bats can skew things pretty heavily. Let's see.
I don't think we're going to see that today at all because their best
Nope.
hitter is McMahon. No hitter's over 10%. Montero's
Just
the
gonna
highest.
say. Yep. Yeah. 9.3. Is Diaz still out?
He hasn't played, I don't think.
Oh, he's on the IL now.
Okay.
Heading into the weekend, he wasn't. So, yeah, they're all single digits. All of them.
Dodgers, like,
yeah, go
they're
ahead.
they're not even that expensive anymore. Like, they've got 4 guys, Freeman, Ohtani, Hernandez, and Smith that are all expensive, but the other 5 guys are cheap.
Dude, outside of Trey Turner, all of Philly's 6 or less % right now. San Diego is going to be one of the lower owned stacks out there as well. None of them pulling ownership. Texas is getting some. Huh. It's always interesting to look at it from individual batter ownership.
Yeah, because then you really get a good gauge of just who isn't getting any love.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The more I look at it, I think this will actually be pretty spread out.
Yeah, so do I. I expect the Dodgers' best hitters to get love, but they're also really expensive, and there's other great plays on this slate. So yeah, and that Texas ownership, I guess, to your point, like this Davis Wenzel, who is 2K, is projected to be 10% owned. You take him out, their top stack percentage starts to look a little bit more appropriate.
Question for you that I think is perfect for you. Einstein said, what do you think the Dodgers ownership will look like in single entry?
It'll be high. A rule of thumb that Greg and I like to take is that whatever their ownership projection is for like a multi-entry GPP is double that for like the highest stacks in tournaments. And I think that's appropriate here. I think their best hitters like Ohtani, specifically Ohtani, he'll be like 50% owned in contests like that. Freeman will be high. Smith will be high. The whole lineup will be high, but Ohtani is the one that's going to be like really, really high. It's like Aaron Judge almost. It's just really, really risky fade on any slate they're on, which isn't the case for almost any hitter ever, but is right now for those two.
Yeah. Shohei Ohtani, to hit a home run plus 168.
The other thing about him is like, he's expensive, so expensive today where you probably need a home run, but because he runs so much, like you don't even need it from him always because when he gets on base, he runs. So he's one of the safest hitters out there. Now every hitter can go 0 for 4. No matter how good Ohtani is, 7 out of 10 times he goes to the plate, he's getting out. But most of his plate appearances aren't in course against Cal Quantrill either.
What's nuts is if you ever look at like total base props, 1.5 is generally the standard. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll see heavy juice to the under, sometimes to the over, but 1.5 is the standard. For back of the lineup guys, it could be a half, with pinch hit risk. He's at 2.5 bases with juice to the over.
You just don't see that. That's like Barry Bonds-ish.
Dude, the last time you really see that type of stuff like consistently was when they had those Mexico City games and stuff.
Oh yeah, good call. Yeah, I mean, as you said, 1.5 is pretty standard. A half is infinitely more standard than 2.5. You just don't see 2.5.
Jake said clicking Ohtani at 7K is certainly a decision. Yeah, I have 49% right now. Shohei Ohtani. Damn. What'd you say we had him projected for?
15 fantasy points. Like,
see, that's
more, only 5 pitchers projected for more than him. He projects for more fantasy points than John Gray, Braxton Garrett, Christopher Sanchez. Like, that's fucking
that's
crazy.
like that's the projection of a quality a quality wide receiver 1.
That's crazy, man. It's just crazy.
Nuts. Oh, by the way, guys, speaking of wide receiver 1s, if you're not on Underdog yet, you'd be wise to take advantage of that sign-up bonus. 50% match up to $250, instant deposit bonus. So whatever you put in, you're matched instantly. It's not like you have to play through. It's not a drip bonus. It's not like it slowly comes into your account or any playthrough nonsense. It's immediate. 50% match up to $250. Whatever you put in up to that, it's matched. Best ball, daily drafts for every sport. Pick them, of course, up to 20x your entry fee. You're just taking the higher or lower. Traditional books, it's over, under, you get the point. But higher or lower on all of these player projections that we talk about right now. Like, you could probably pull the Ohtani 2.5 bases over there on Underdog right now. You could do fantasy points too in those pick'ems. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. It's super connected to DFS and fantasy too, but big time bonus. In my opinion, it's by far the best place to play for all of that. Bigger platform with more options than anywhere else. And I can't wait to get heavy into best ball. Yeah, Zach Gaskin said in chat, Underdog is the best. It is. Links in the description, and it's in chat if you want to check it out. Well worth your time. I can promise you that much. Matt, top 3 pitchers for today. Go. And you can't give me the 3 guys up top. You can, but actually go ahead. I will make it top 4 pitchers for this slate.
Yeah, no, I think that the top 3 are pretty clear. Skeens 1, the other 2 very close. And then Braxton Garrett is going to be my next guy. So if you want me to just give 3 without including one of those top guys, give me Skeens, Fried, Garrett.
Okay, me too. I think it has to be. Has to be. Skeens for sure. Then you have Fried and Gray up there. And then I think, Garrett would be my 4. You're going to have to get some cheap options in here. I think the next one for me probably is Sonny Gray as well. Oh, I'm sorry, John Gray. I already said Sonny Gray. John Gray. I think he's perfectly reasonable there. Top 3 stacks. Top 4
we'll just
stacks,
take out,
Matt.
I was going to just take out the Dodgers the same way.
Yeah.
They're the clear number 1. I'm going to go the Giants 2, the Rockies 3, or the Rockies 3 and the Cubs 4. Cubs and Phillies real close for me. All 4 of those teams are very close.
Okay. Yeah, Rockies, Dodgers, obviously. Philly, Cubs. Hard to not like the Giants. I'm just looking down here to see if there's any, contrarian spots that maybe you and I could hit on before we go. Oh yeah, I will. I'll say, like, if you're just getting crazy and you're playing a lot of lineups, I don't hate the idea of having a few like straight 5-man Padre stacks in the event that, again, Sanchez hasn't allowed power, and I don't expect him to just get crushed, but these numbers are so much better than last year that there might just be underrepresentation for this Padres team tonight. Big wins blowing out. absolute bandbox at Citizens Bank Park. It's a top 3 homer park in baseball, you know, close to 90 degrees at first pitch. I think all of that at least means we should consider this spot.
So low owned. I dig it.
Give me one contrarian spot before we go.
One team that's like getting absolutely no love that I think is in play. I'm going to say the Mets against your John Gray. Like, I don't love it or anything, and I don't think Gray is bad, but the Mets are hot right now, and Gray is not a pitcher I'm afraid to pick on. So the Mets.
Okay. I like it. Hey, appreciate you guys as always for hanging out, tuning in. And thanks, Max. Happy belated Father's Day to all dads in chat and at Stochastic. We might be the only dads at Stochastic.
Wow, really?
I mean, Greg isn't.
Yeah, you're
Ben
right.
isn't.
Actually, Eric
isn't.
Josh
isn't. Jordan isn't.
Hey, you're right. Damn, I didn't think about it like that.
Emac isn't.
Nope.
These guys are all just doing their best to contribute to population collapse. Good job.
Alex is.
Alex is, yes. Tom is. Tom has a couple, but he's a CEO.
Okay.
Yeah, just doing their best to contribute to the collapse and demise of civilization. One fatherless man or one childless man at a time. So good work, boys. Hey, Max, I live in Bucks County too, brother. Been nice around here lately. Must say, we had a good day yesterday for sure. Anyway, thanks, guys. Go have some fucking kids. Go knock somebody up, for God's sakes. We got to get our numbers up. We got to stay a superpower. See you guys later. NBA and MLB live before lock tonight. Peace. You like that?